Welcome to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. We are a community newspaper based in Midcoast, Maine, and we provide the most comprehensive, in-depth coverage available anywhere of the 18 towns and one plantation that make up Lincoln County. My name is Piper Pavelich, and I'm a reporter here at the Lincoln County News.
And my name is Molly Rains. I'm also a reporter here, and we have our editor, Maya Zewert, here. Hi, Maya.
Hi. How are you guys doing?
Oh, just wonderful. How are you?
Good, good. Should we give a shout out to Mr. Jonathan Riley, who's usually here for this?
Yes, he's here in spirit.
Yeah.
Is unfortunately being a good partner and celebrating his and his girlfriend's anniversry.
How
Happy
dare
anniversary
he?
to Jonathan Riley, the third member of our newsroom at the moment.
Yeah.
I guess we can let him have the day off.
I mean, yeah,
Whatever.
maybe.
Whatever.
But speaking of Jonathan, he did kind of have the biggest news of this week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did.
He did. Jonathan spoke with a lot of people who knew Bobby Weir, who was a longtime Damascotta figure who passed away on Friday, January 17th.
He was the co-owner of the Mill Pond in Noblesboro and was a local bartender since the 80s. But the way I know of him is he was a host on Was Up for about 10 years in a Lincoln County television talk show where they go over our newspaper.
Mm-hmm. And when I started working here, somebody showed me a clip of it, and I was astounded that it existed.
Oh, I know.
He and Larry Seidlinger would, well, probably you've seen it if you're listening to this podcast. Yeah, so the show will be on hiatus for a while. We don't know what will happen with that.
Yeah.
Jonathan got to talk to a lot of people who knew Bobby. Jonathan also knew Bobby himself. And a family friend, or a close friend, I guess, of Bobby Weir himself said that he was an extremely compassionate person with a tremendous zest for life. He was an ambassador, a connector, the mayor of Damascotta, one of my closest friends. If anyone needed anything, you called Bobby.
He sounded like a great guy.
He was truly one of the best. And I want to say the photo we have on the front of him wearing his NCAA, I want to say it's from the story Paula did in 2023 about how Bobby had gone to the Frozen Four because Bobby had a lifelong love of hockey. Just his smirk and the look in his eyes, it's yes, that is the Bobby Weir everybody remembers. And so much so, I was at a meeting last night and someone came up to me and they were like, that picture, that was Bobby.
Oh.
And they also had some very kind things to say about the article, which I texted Jonathan about because he worked really hard on it, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
This was a tough one for him, but I think he definitely did it justice.
He did, yeah. It's hard to walk the line when you care so much and you are personally involved in a story about somebody who's passed.
Well, that's actually one of the things he and I kind of talked about on Monday. I might have shared it with you guys too. When we have community notable deaths, right? Where it's okay, this is someone who has made a lasting impact on the community through X, Y, Z, and the other. Those are the stories that have to get written. And especially in a community newspaper such as ours, where the community is so tight-knit, it's impossible-ish to not have some connection to someone. And so what I said to Jonathan was there are times in which I know this person so well, I have to be the one to write this. And there are times in which I know this person so well, I cannot be the one to write this. Yeah. And he walked the line very well. You could tell that there was a lot of heart and sentimentality in it. And then he also talked to people who illustrated the different parts of Bobby's life really well.
Definitely. And I know in our newsroom, we're really grateful for him and amazed that he and Larry have done made something so cool with our newspaper and highlighted it on LCTV.
Well, and Bobby was also a really big supporter of the newspaper. One time I went out to dinner with Aaron Dodge, our editorial assistant, and Elizabeth Walls-Toney, the great former departed reporter who has left us for BDN, whatever.
She's alive, yeah.
Yeah, she is alive. She's dead to us.
Oh, God.
Whoa.
No, she's very much alive. I texted her earlier this week. But we went to the River Grill for dinner, and Bobby was bartending and came over and like went through one of Elizabeth's articles, not even from that week's paper, but from the week prior, just like how much he liked about it and this, that, and the other. And just like you could tell he'd read it and he read it closely and he just wanted to tell her how much he appreciated it and liked it. And it's like, yeah.
And that means so much.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
Yeah, and he was also involved in the Lincoln County Recovery Collaborative, which he started or helped start in 2016. And that's a big part of our county, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Very multifaceted contributions.
What a guy.
Yeah.
So thanks to Jonathan for writing that piece and doing that work. And thank you so much to Bobby Weir.
Yeah, definitely. He will be missed.
And then we have someone, speaking of what a guy, we had a great character at the county this week.
Molly did this one.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking to Norman Sherman, who, that name might not ring a bell, but I bet Norm's Cars does.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Norm's Used Cars.
What was great was when she turned it in, like we write the first and last name into the headline and it said Norman Sherman. I want to say my first note to Molly
who is this?
was, you have got to put Norm. Otherwise, people who have known him his whole life will be like, who the heck is Norman?
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, people who went to high school with him won't know what this article's about.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. But yes, it is the great Norm of Norm's Used Cars.
Yeah, the one and only. And he's been in the used car business since he graduated from high school in 1977 from
That's bonkers.
Wiscasset. It was Wiscasset High School at the time. Mm-hmm. And he started his business side by side with his dad's auto body business.
Oh,
And his mom did the books for both of them. So it was a family business from the very beginning.
there you go.
Just like the one we work at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he said it's always been smooth sailing, which is glorious and great to hear.
And I think a lie.
Oh, come on.
With all respect to Norman, those are some rose-colored glasses. Or he has a very like close-knit family.
Yeah,
that
I mean, we'll never know.
Got a good outlook on how this is going.
Well, I really enjoyed, like, typically when we do the character photos, it's just a profile shot of like the individual. But I like how for this one you had his family because not only was his business started as a family business, it remains a family business.
Yeah, that was very sweet touch.
Yeah, his wife and his daughter are both very involved in the business. And he also mentioned that there's been a lot of people who've brought their own families in along the way because now it's no longer a 3-person operation. He has, I think, 26 employees.
Wow.
And represented in there are a bunch of families, which is great. And I want to tell a fun little story he told me about when he started his business in 77. He had 3 cars. 2 of them were his that he had just decided to sell. And then he also had $600 in his savings account. And from there, he's built the business. I think anybody listening is familiar with Norm's Used Cars. You see it on the license plates, you hear the radio ads, and now he's selling 600 cars a year. So
wow.
He's quite a businessman. And then he also is involved in like economic development in Wiscasset. He flips properties and fixes buildings himself. So he's very motivated.
Yeah, a little bit ago, I wrote a story about a new business in Wiscasset, Charm Tie. He owns their building.
Yes. Yep.
It was like going through that list. It's like, oh, not only the number of businesses that are there now, like very recognizable names, but just the history of those. And having been here almost a decade, I've seen them turn over a healthy amount. And like, I'm sure there's more to it as well. So
absolutely. He was talking about all of the people in Wiscasset who he works with, like town officials who he has to align with and work with to do this. And it's amazing how involved he and his wife are in the Wiscasset Route 1 corridor, which we all know and love.
I mean, we all spend a whole lot of time on it during the summer.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, especially in the summer with the traffic, but that's all right.
Yes.
At the very least, you can look out your window and see Norm's Used Cars.
And I'll
Check out the inventory as you're stuck.
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
So thanks to Norm for interviewing with me for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We had a couple of Lincoln County men receive presidential pardons for the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Yes, I reported on that. 2 Lincoln County men, both from towns that I cover, Waldoboro and Jefferson. We have Matthew Brackley, who's 41, Joshua Colgan, 36. They were both present at the U.S. Capitol building on January 6th, 2021, when there was a riot and insurrection. And they were both, they both pleaded guilty in plea deals to charges related to their actions on that day. But they were pardoned with a presidential pardon after President Trump took office on Monday.
January 20th.
Yes, Monday, January 20th. Matthew Brackley was in the midst of serving 15 months, and he was released. Joshua Colgan had already served 28 days, and he said that he appreciated the pardon. Now I think Maya's got some sports news she'd like to share with us. Some very exciting
things that were on our front page this week. And it almost got to the point at which we did not. There was a version of our front page where 4 of the stories would have been sports related. And Paula was like, no.
Well, hey, if that's the news, then that's the news.
Well, especially like over in Madomic Valley, like an insane amount of just accomplishments because Madomic Valley senior Katana Williamson, scored her 1,000th point also on Monday, January 20th. It was the Pause for a Cause pink out game. For the past 8 years, the Panthers have been hosting this fundraiser game during their regular season to raise funds for breast cancer charities. And so with 1:16 left to play in her bright pink uniform, because it's the only game of the year in which the home team wears pink, she went up for a layup and got her 999th and 1,000th point.
Oh my gosh.
That must have been a sight to see.
What's great is you can see it because Paula got the exact shot that she went up for. And you can see like defender right on her the entire time.
Thank goodness for Paula.
Yeah,
I know, right? And so she, Katana, is actually currently one of 3 women to have accomplished this at Madomic.
Wow.
And so Alana Vose, who graduated in 2012, has 1,023 career points. And then Julie Littlefield, who graduated in 1992, has 1,034 points. So Katana ended up scoring a total of 25 in that game. So she currently sits at 1,010. There's 5 games left in the season as of the recording of this podcast. So there's potential.
She could do it.
She could break a record that's been standing for over 30 years,
Wow.
which I think would be really cool to watch.
Yeah,
It
that's
absolutely
amazing.
would be. Wow.
And also, if you haven't gotten to a basketball game, Katana Williamson is amazing to watch. I remember her freshman year, because she's played varsity all 4 years.
Wow.
Saying to Lucas McNally, who works here, who is also a big basketball person, as you may or may not know. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, she's fearless, because she was just like, wherever she needed to be, she was there. And it didn't matter if she was going up against someone taller than her, someone faster than her, whatever. She was on them. She had them. Game over. It was awesome.
Wow.
Good for her. She's got spunk.
Yeah. I gotta say, working here has made me care way more about high school basketball than I ever have. We got a lot of enthusiasts in the house, and it's like, it's really exciting. It's really real.
It is. Like, you should go to a game, for real. Like, tonight.
It's gonna be a Panthers game if I go to one.
Heck yes, it is. I mean, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. By the time this is out, it'll already have passed, but Madomic Valley is playing Lincoln Academy.
Oh, there you go.
Boys tonight, girls tomorrow.
Who's the favorite?
For the boys, so this is where like the any given Sunday kind of mentality comes in, because it is cross county. Mm-hmm, I mean, it all depends on who shows up to win. Mm-hmm. Saying that, the Madomic boys are currently undefeated, and they've been doing really well. But at the same time, Lincoln Academy boys, they've been having a good run of late. So if they show up fired up and want to get some revenge for the Panthers beating them earlier in the season, it could happen.
It's anybody's game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check out the newspaper because we'll probably have the results of that game by the time
we
you're
will.
listening to this. Awesome.
Also on the 1,000 point beat, Maddie York, a Lincoln Academy alum, just scored her 1,000th point for the University of Southern Maine.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is pretty incredible. So, yeah. But back to Madomic. So the Pease twins, Seamus and Grady, they are juniors. They both just got their 100th win, which is it's comparable to getting 1,000 points in
Are
basketball.
they wrestlers?
They are wrestlers.
Wow.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yes. And so Grady earned his 100th win at Edward Little High School on January 4, and Seamus earned his 100th win at Winslow on January 8th. And Paula included a fun detail in there, which is that Seamus is actually older by 2 minutes. But Grady got his win first.
Dang, that's some sibling rivalry. The
Yes.
conditions are ripe for some competition.
And it can continue. So they're both juniors, right? And they have a full other season to wrestle.
Wow.
And the school record is held by Eric Benner of 177 wins. And they're both quoted saying, "We want it."
Yeah.
I
Sounds
guess
like
we'll
they're
see
on
who
track.
gets there first. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're juniors. Yeah.
Well, not just who gets there first, but who
Who keeps it? Yeah.
Because, like, if they both hit
Yeah.
it, then it's like, all
Then
right,
one's got to
whoever.
beat the other.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it becomes.
Well, no, I don't
Yeah,
mean like
yeah.
a sibling showdown. I mean, somebody's got to rack up more points than the other.
There's only one way to settle this.
I think it would be very dynamic, though, if they both got 178 wins and then we're like, you know
Oh,
what,
yeah.
we're done. We're done.
yeah.
We'll hold it together forever.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Aw, that's
yeah.
cute. Doesn't seem like wrestling.
No, it doesn't. Very much doesn't seem like. Yeah. No.
Awesome.
But another final note on wrestling over at Lincoln Academy, Adam St. Cyr earned his 150th win, which bonkers.
Goodness.
He was this took place at the Skowhegan Invitational on Saturday, January 18, and he was named the most outstanding wrestler at that tournament.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been a big day for him. Just like so much achievement. And is he a senior?
He is a senior, yeah. So
Sweet.
And there was a note in the Pease article that the twins wrestle for Adam's father, Sean St. Cyr, in the off season. So,
Wow.
I
yeah,
love that.
Huge culture.
Yes.
That's really cool.
goes back to close knit community. Everybody knows everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's working together. Keeps the competition high too.
Yeah.
And that's what's new in sports.
So glad
you,
we have you here. Just a few other things going on this week. I was at a Somerville Planning Board meeting where there was extensive discussion about property lines
Oh.
and variances, etc. A mobile home, manufactured home dealer, Tim Ames, was requesting a variance because he discovered after laying a concrete pad that the property lines weren't where he thought, is what he says.
No.
And the planning board said, well, it's not up to us to issue a variance, but you can take it up with the appeals board. So we'll be
Wow.
following that.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
It's too bad he had to figure that out after he already laid the
What he said was that he measured the property lines himself and then poured the pad and then discovered a pin that he'd overlooked. So I think the moral of the story, because this happens all the time, is that property lines are crazy in Maine and you need a triple check for pins if you're going to be pouring a pad.
As my grandfather used to say, measure twice, cut once.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. And then don't go to the appeals board.
And or just get a professional in.
Yeah, that's probably the better advice. Yes. And Piper, you've got some internet news.
Yeah. So the broadband committee over in Noblesboro is piloting a reimbursement program. They said they designed it off of Bremen's broadband reimbursement program and a now defunct program from the federal government. But it's going to help eligible lower and middle class families with home-based internet services. And so for anyone who applies and is accepted, they will receive $30 toward their monthly bill. So
Nice.
hopefully
That's great.
some people in Nobleboro can see some savings with their internet bills soon.
Yeah, I hope so. That's a great program because I know that broadband can get expensive. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
cool. And you have a new select board member in Whitefield?
Yeah. For people familiar with Lincoln Academy, you might know this name, Brian Omani, who is a history teacher there.
I am so proud of you for saying Omani correctly,
yeah.
considering you've been calling it Edgecombe for like so long.
Stop. Why'd you have to tell them that? No, I haven't, guys. Don't listen to her.
Edgecombe.
And Piper's from this area.
I'm doing my best. I had never heard of Edgecombe before I came to work here. I'm so sorry.
Somewhere Jonathan's like the hairs on the back of his neck stood
He's
up
like,
and
I
he doesn't
feel
know
it.
why.
She just said it. But anyway, Mr. Omani, as some call him, was elected to the Whitefield Select Board. 34 voters came out, voted for him. He was running unopposed. He will be serving the remainder of previous member Joshua Leard's term. He had resigned back in September 2024. So,
Good for Whitefield.
yeah.
Got somebody in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how much it takes to be on a volunteer board. So
I know, yeah.
we are always thinking about how much commitment select board members are showing.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So-
guys.
Thank you all, and thank you, Mr. Omani, for running for the board. I am sure the town very much appreciates it.
So I want to talk a little bit about heating assistance.
And I would love to hear about heating assistance.
Awesome. Well, it's been cold.
It has been so cold. I swear I haven't been able to feel my toes for the last few days.
Yeah. And I think regardless of the cold snap that we're in right now, all winter, since early fall, there are some local organizations that help people out when they need help paying for fuel or wood or whatever they need to keep their home warm. And all of them have been observing a greater turnout than usual in the amount of people who need help.
That's interesting because, year after year, I'm sure they see either the same amount or more people asking for help. So it's interesting that it's gotten to a point where it's almost inconceivable how
Yeah.
much help is needed.
Definitely. I spoke to Brittany Gill, who's the project manager at CHIP, Community Housing Improvement Project, CHIP Inc. And she said that this year, the level of need is higher than she's seen in 9 years of administering
Wow.
fuel assistance. And that's amazing because what CHIP does is provide emergency assistance for people who, if you don't have like literally any fuel in your tank or less than a quarter, or you are running out of wood, and it's really cold, you need help right away, they'll do their best.
Yeah, so this is really not good if this is the highest need she's
this
seen
is-
in the
yeah.
last almost decade.
Yeah, just to contextualize what that means. And I also spoke to Robert Clifford, the co-founder of Community Energy Fund of Lincoln County. They're not an emergency provider because it's hard to get vendors out same day, but they do provide fuel assistance for people who are struggling to pay. And he said that they have noticed more requests this year from the beginning of the heating season, so really in the early fall or October, November. Yeah, and both Gill and Clifford said that it seemed like this was connected to a slower than usual rollout of federal funding.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we have a program called the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which I'm going to call LIHEAP for convenience.
All right.
I allowed you to call it that in the article too. I just want you to know.
I
That's a
appreciated
win.
that.
There you go.
I did define it first.
You did. You did. I'm usually not acronyms that you cannot remember every letter of it.
Yeah.
But with this one, I was like,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Well, so I've never heard of lie heap.
Yeah. What is it?
Thank you for asking. It's a federal program. It provides millions of dollars in funding to all 50 states. and I think a couple territories too. And it provides money for people who qualify by demonstrating financial need for either heating or cooling. So if you're in a southern state, probably you'll use this money to run an air conditioner or something to keep yourself safe. And in the northern states, which get the bulk of funding through the program, it's used for heating assistance. And the way it works is the federal government disperses this money to all the states, and then in the state, the individual community action partnerships or CAP agencies, they distribute the money to people on the ground who need it. So there's an application process and determination of eligibility and all that.
So who here distributes that then?
Well, for the past year and a half, it's been Mid-Coast Maine Community Action, which is located in Bath.
Okay.
And they do it for us, Lincoln County, and for Saginaw County. But before that, it was Kennebec Valley Community Action. So we recently had a shift. And I got to speak to the folks at Mid-Coast Maine Community Action, and they kind of agreed with what Gil and Clifford had said and owned up to the fact that there's a backlog of applications right now. That's not to say that they're not dispersing aid, because they've done a lot, and they're really working on it. They have, I think, 3 people working to process applications, but the volume of applications they've gotten is much higher than previous years, and they just have fewer staff because COVID funding dried up, so they didn't have as much money. They have a smaller team. And it sounded like they opened up their online calendar where you can book a spot, because to get this money, because it's federal money, there's a lot of requirements and you have to prove that you need it. So you have to meet with them in person or on the phone. And they opened up their online calendar in, I think, June, way before the heating season had started. And within a short period of time, all the spots through the end of February were full. And they still haven't finished working their way through those applications.
Wow.
Yeah. So that just speaks to the level of need. That's I can't remember. I think that Michael Pepin, who's the director of community services, he said that they had received or processed about upwards of 1,500 for the 2-county area that they serve, which is, when you're talking about people who are trying to meet the basic need of keeping themselves warm, that's a really high number.
That's a very high number, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so in addition to staffing, it sounds like they also had a new computer system that they started using this year.
Those always gum up the works.
They do. Yeah, so Maine Housing rolled out a new data processing that's like you put your application in there, it gets all the information. And the staff, there were some bugs and the staff had to learn how to use it. So that also kind of contributed to the problem. Yeah. Trying to keep each other warm, you know? So when I spoke with Brittany at CHIP, she said that, well, she had a really useful metaphor for explaining the difference between these LIHEAP dollars, which are provided by the government, and local community organizations like CHIP Inc. and the Community Energy Fund. And the way she explained it was, think of those community organizations like food pantries, and then LIHEAP like SNAP, which you might know as food stamps. And she was saying, imagine that SNAP just stopped. Yeah. Or at least came to a dramatic slowdown. Could our local food pantries provide aid to people to fill that gap? Probably not. And that's what we're seeing right now on the ground. Mid-Coast Maine Community Action is still working really hard to try and get applications processed, but they're also, most of those applications aren't for emergency aid. So in terms of dealing with the rising cost of living and this cold snap that we're in, we're continuing to see a lot of emergency requests. Yeah.
Well, if I know this community, I'm sure they're sitting here listening, wondering what they can do.
Yeah. Well, you can donate to the Community Energy Fund. And Robert Clifford was saying, he was pointing out that one of the most important things we can do for each other is keep an eye out. He called police and doctors and community members the ears and eyes on the ground that we need to keep people from going cold. Because I think in Maine, especially, there's a lot of pride and you may not want to ask for help or even realize that you could be eligible. So look out for your neighbors who maybe don't know that there's resources available. And I do just want to be a little more optimistic because Clifford did say he feels like the Community Energy Fund has the resources to meet the need and they're going to keep working to do that. So if you need heating assistance, you should contact your town's general assistance administrator or give a call to Midcoast Maine Community Action and emphasize if it's an emergency situation, make sure that they know that, because there are other routes they were saying that they can follow to get you the help that you need.
Mm-hmm. So everybody stay warm out there.
Please.
And keep your neighbors warm.
Look out for each other. Yeah, shovel your neighbors' steps if they need it. Because it's really, I feel like this theme keeps coming up in our discussions about the problems that we face as a community, whether it's sea level rise and more extreme weather, or the effects like this of the cost of living rising. And really the theme that providers are telling us when we interview them and say, well, what can we do, is just look out for each other. Like when I spoke to folks at the University of Maine doing research about climate resilience, they were saying that community networks are an untapped resource. And I think that that's true here. And people do look out for each other. Jonathan was saying that Bobby Weir is an example of that.
So absolutely. So yeah, the best thing we can do is look out for each other and help in any way that we can.
Yeah. And ask for help when you need it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Molly.
Thanks, Piper. And Maya.
Oh, I did very little.
Oh, come on.
Just be here. Yes.
Except for just be here, edit the newspaper.
You know.
Maya, like I just said, the best thing we can do is be there for each other.
Yes, I try.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. Production support is provided by Tyler Davis of Tyality Productions. Theme music by Stu Mahan and Sherwood Olin.
Have a question or a suggestion? Email us at info@lcnme.com. And if you haven't already, please be sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen.
This has been a Lincoln County Publishing Company production.